Were you just bored sitting there? Were you thinking about your future? Were you sad? Were you angry? Were you mad at God? Like, I mean, where were you at?
So, very interesting what happened. The range of emotions, obviously, yes. One of the worst things ever was the pain. It created a 24/7 hell that would never leave. My body was crushed, on fire, 24/7. And obviously not even being able to move. I just had to sit there and deal with it. One thing I never thought about, I think most people don't, is I lost my senses. So I had my sense of I had my sight. I don't even know if I could smell. But I couldn't touch, I couldn't write anything else. And we know we're sitting on Earth because your feet send messages to your brain. Well, what happens is when you lose your senses and you're sitting in a bed in a room that has no windows and beeping, your brain doesn't know how to understand the world that it's in. This is something called ICU delirium. And ICU delirium can happen to anybody in the ICU. But when you were in my position, it's like that times 100 because my body couldn't make grips of reality. And so my brain would interpretate situations and it would build them out as a way to understand the world. It's a little hard to kind of describe, but let's say this. I'm lying in the hospital hooked to tubes. You come in and I see you and smile and you come talk to me and show me the thing and I'm looking around the room, seeing people, what they're doing and everything. And you happen to say, because this actually happened, we just went to Japan. My brain hears Japan. And then they may say some other things. Well, the room starts to turn into something different. And it became Japan, or the location that they were talking about. My nurses, my brain couldn't get a hold of the pain and why I was having it. So for a lot of the times, my nurses, my brain, the only way it could understand it was I was being tortured, and they were the people torturing me. So I thought I was either in a cave when it was dark with lights flickering, and they had me strung up. And when they came in and interact, I would beg them to stop, and I would scream in my head, and they would be moving, taking care of me. But every time they touched me, the pain was so horrific that I thought they were burning me, scalding me, and breaking my legs, things like that. So that lovely scenario went on for a long time. And then it would come in and out. My brother left Hawaii, actually. He was here studying. My brother Trevor called him up and said, "Taylor, you need to get home to see AJ now." Like, oh, okay, when? Now, leave. Because they didn't know if I was going to live. So he got on a plane, left, and then he actually never left the hospital. He would stay. He left the hospital, but he didn't ever come back. He would stay with me every night, and somebody would stay with me every day. And his job, what he would do is he would grab my face, and he would bring me back. Say, no, we're right here. This is what's happening. And he would describe so my brain could understand what was really happening. Wow. That I wasn't being tortured. As that started to come off and wear off, and I was better able to understand the world around me, every little thing that happened was so incredible, I didn't really know how to be upset. Meaning that it was complete fight or flight. So, like, it's funny even seeing the videos, but anytime I would do anything, it was just incredible. So the first time that I got to speak, the first time that I moved my finger, and it was like, I was just so excited. It was just, oh, this is incredible. And it was little teeny milestones. I honestly thought that I'd been in the hospital for years. I didn't know that I'd only been in there for 4 months. I had no concept of it. So every little thing, it was like coming back from the dead, and it was just incredible. People would cheer when I would take a drink, and it was like I was a 2-year-old again, yeah. Right? Like, good job, you used the potty. Yeah, that was me. So it was this hell to then all of a sudden ecstatic something happened. And I loved my nurses. And so the only way that I felt I could control the situation, because everybody was so horrified, was that I tried to make them feel comfortable. Which is weird, but I really tried to make, I'm okay, don't worry about me, right? Like, oh, look at that, and tried to joke with people and stuff when I wasn't in too much pain. But it was survival mode. My brain would play tricks on me, and it wasn't actually until a lot later date that I think I really had to come to grips with what had just happened.
Yeah.
And in fact, the hardest part was when nothing was wrong. That was the hardest part.
What do you mean?
So the hardest part of dealing with it was when I finally got out of I went from the hospital, home, wheelchair, to leg braces and walking help. And then once I got out of leg braces, I just had help walking, which started out as like arm braces that would help me walk, and then to a cane. And then once I lost the cane, after all the physical parts of me left, I was still left with the pain. And I was still left with all these other problems. But I looked normal. It was at that time when I could start to live more of a normal type life that it was like, what just happened? Because everything else, it was so much, I had a goal. I had something I could think about. Yeah. I'm going to take a step. I'm going to do something. And it was just all my focus, right? It was just, you can do this. You can do this. When it stopped, that's when it hit me. And that was massively overwhelming. It was just like, what just happened? And that was years later. Years. And then I had for the first time where I'd been dropping my drug intake. So my pain meds had always been going down because I was getting better. Yeah. And then I'd hit about a year ago and I couldn't go down anymore. And it was at that point they were like, I left rehab. Rehab was like, hey, AJ, you can keep coming, but you're not getting better. And I was like, I'll show you, which I did. I got out of my leg braces. I got out of my arm stuff. I actually walked on my own, which they didn't think I could happen. And I did that not being in rehab. And then a year later after that, my meds stopped. And I'm like, no, I can overcome this. I can still do it. And so I tried. I tried to get off the medication and just push through the pain. But it was so bad, I stopped being able to do anything. I just stay in bed. So I had to go back on the normal regimen. I'd never gotten off the pain meds. I was still on it, just not as high as a dose. Yeah. It was at that time that was the first time in years that I was not progressing. And that shattered me. Because then it was like, you're going to be like this forever. You're not moving forward. There's no goal anymore. Live with it. And it taught me a lot about life and how, for me, even when it comes to money, everything else, the goal is progress. I want to be better next year than I am this year. If we can have something to look forward to and progress, we can get through so much. We can do so much. But that feeling of, no, it's done. There's nothing you can do. Somebody robbed something deep inside of me that was so necessary for me to be a normal functioning human. It's hard to even describe. They take away my hope. They took away my future. They took away anything that I thought that I may become or do. And it was at that moment that it was the hardest. It wasn't in the wheelchair dealing with the pain. That was a different kind of hard. That was just, bawling, crying because of pain and like really horrific stuff. It sounds awesome. Like, oh yeah, you came back and you did great. Now you're walking stuff. It's not pretty. It's not fun. It's not a hero's journey. I don't feel like it is. It's not like people are like, oh, you overcame this, you did this. And it's like, it's not like, you make it sound like I set a goal to climb a mountain and I did it. That's not what happened. I tried not to die. Yeah. It wasn't like I'm in a Rocky movie where it was like run up the stairs. No, I'm vomiting. I can't function. I can't do things. My wife's carrying me from a wheelchair. It was not pretty. It was, so then I had this massive guilt about people even being proud of me. And it was like, what are you proud about? Like, why is this why do you think that this is something that I did good or noble? And so it was actually when it was kind of done and I was left with the pieces. That was probably the hardest part.